Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner. In today's edition, I want to talk about the Men's Road World Championships that just finished 2 days ago on Sunday. Today is Tuesday, or maybe you guys are watching on Wednesday. Depends on when I finish editing. Either way, you'll be entertained. I want to talk a little bit about Mathieu van der Poel, a little bit about Wout van Aert, and of course, I got to talk about the French team. Got to talk about Team Denmark and the Men's Road World Championships that were so aggressive throughout Sunday's 270-kilometer race. Now, Mathieu van der Poel. Of course, I read the comments after the Men's Road World Championships, after we posted up the video on the butterfly effect, where a lot of you guys were like, you gotta move up Mathieu van der Poel into the top 5. Well, I am going to change my top 5, but I'm not going to rotate the top 5. I'm going to add a 6th onto the first page. Now, that's a big thing, okay? Number 1 rider, Jonas Vingegaard. Second, Tadej Pogacar. Third, Primoz Roglic. He's getting ready for the Vuelta a España. We'll see if he can hold on to that. Remco Evenepoel still 4th. He just got done winning the Classic of San Sebastian, and he's going to have to defend his Vuelta a España title from last year here in a few weeks against 2 Jumbo-Visma riders that are 1st and 3rd on my list. 5th on my list is still Wout van Aert. I still have him over Mathieu van der Poel, but I have added Mathieu van der Poel onto the first page. Now, it's difficult. I know if you guys are saying I'm taking Mathieu van der Poel, especially after that Men's Road World Championships where he was spectacular. He crashed with 16 and a half kilometers to go, got back on his bike with 1 buckle on his right shoe, still powered away from 3 legends behind with Wout van Aert, Mads Pedersen, and Tadej Pogacar chasing him that can't bring in any time down on Mathieu van der Poel and held off for a spectacular Men's Road World Championships. I get it. Guys, he's won Flanders twice. He's won Paris-Roubaix once, and Wout van Aert hasn't won any of those races, including the Men's Road World Championships. But Wout van Aert has 9 stage victories at the Tour de France to the 1 victory that Mathieu van der Poel has. Both have hold the race leader's yellow jersey at the Tour de France. But in my book, what really holds Wout van Aert over Mathieu van der Poel is the fact that when you look at those 9 stage wins at the Tour de France, those are spectacular. But when you start looking at how he affected the general classification and all the battling that was going on through the last 2 and 3 seasons of the Tour de France, especially the last 2, guys, even this year in 2023, when we look at stage 6, remember when he was in that big break up the road? Then Jumbo-Visma back there started chasing full gas on Col de Aspen with Christophe Laporte while Wout van Aert was riding on the front. Can you imagine in the writers' meeting in the bus when the director sportif said, Wout, I wanted you to go over the Col de Aspen. I wanted you to go over the Col de Tourmalet, pulling everybody that's with you, whoever can hold on to your wheel that's in that big break with you. Go over the top of the Col de Tourmalet, drop out of the break, go back for Jonas Vingegaard, grab Jonas Vingegaard, and pull him all the way into Côte-Bray-Camp-Basque with just about 5 kilometers to go, and then launch Jonas Vingegaard to try to win and destroy what everyone thought could have been a dead Tadej Pogacar. It backfired, right? But still, the move that Wout van Aert is unheard of. Even when I'm thinking about it today, if I'm the director sitting in the bus, I'm thinking, what just came out of your mouth if I'm the second director looking at the first director saying, hey, this is what I expect for you to do, big guy Wout van Aert. So that is why I'm holding Wout van Aert still in the number 5 spot on the first page. Now, there could be some reshuffling after the Vuelta a España begins. Maybe Remco Evenepoel drops down. Maybe Primoz Roglic drops down. Heck, who knows? Maybe Jonas Vingegaard drops down. I don't see it happening, but maybe it does. Because I didn't see Tadej Pogacar losing the number 1 spot on the butterfly effect and beyond the coverage at this year's Tour de France, but it happened, and I'm still in awe of it that Jonas Vingegaard has moved up into the number 1 spot on the butterfly effect and beyond the coverage. So when I'm talking Mathieu van der Poel, originally I had him about 6th on the second page, but even then, sometimes he was fluctuating where, yeah, okay, he was 6th, but then Egan Bernal would win the Giro d'Italia. We just about saw Geraint Thomas win the Giro this year, so that might have bumped Mathieu van der Poel down too, where he's sitting 7th. That's why I don't even like to give a top 6 through 10th on the second page, because I just think it's ridiculous how much the second page can change. But with this win at the Road World Championships, I'm jumping Mathieu van der Poel from page 2 to page 1 and have him solidly in a 6th place. Mainly because the kid is riding from the beginning of the season through the middle of the season, and he's going to ride good at the end of the season, of course. So you look at his resume, though, this year, where he won Milan-San Remo, went up against Wout van Aert and Tadej Pogacar on the last 2 climbs there, and just drilled him and dropped him with 200 meters to go to solo down the descent, get on the promenade, and ride it all the way into the finish and have time to celebrate. That was magnificent, and that's early here in 2023. Then we get into the classics proper, and we see another battle against Wout van Aert, where we see them at Paris-Roubaix battling, and then Wout's back tire goes flat. So what does Mathieu van der Poel do? Well, he's going to see you in the douches, and he solos it all the way on Paris-Roubaix to win spectacular. Now we finish the Tour de France. He didn't look spectacular at the Tour de France, with the exception of some of those leadouts to Jasper Philipsen. That was quite remarkable. But other than that, he looked a little off there. And so you come 2 weeks after the Tour de France finishes, and you see this Road World Championships, where honestly the big difference I see between Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel with this spectacular win at the Worlds, like I've always said, Mathieu van der Poel strategically always seems to put Wout van Aert in places where he's doing more work, and Mathieu van der Poel is always doing just a little bit less. And it seems like he's always cat and mousing. He's playing with Wout like a little mouse a lot of times in these races, and then Wout does something wrong or rides a little too much at the front, and Mathieu van der Poel makes him pay and then just destroys the competition and solos in like we saw on Sunday. That was a spectacular win. I still have gone back on Monday to review some of the tapes, and then I've reviewed some of the tapes here on today's Tuesday, 2 days after the Roads Worlds, just to try to get all the details down a little bit better. So I have moved up Mathieu van der Poel, but just not above Wout van Aert, because the most important thing up here on Beyond the Coverage and the Butterfly Effect, I think, which rider would I sign? That plays a big part, which would be Wout van Aert. Now, which rider would I sign, Jonas Vingegaard or Tadej Pogacar? I think I'd take Tadej Pogacar over Jonas Vingegaard, but I still have Jonas Vingegaard as number 1 because he beat Tadej Pogacar at the last 2 Tour de France's and outsmarted him and rode smoother throughout the Tour de France's to be able to take those spectacular wins last year. And of course, this year, the individual time trial in stage 17, he was remarkable. So if there's some changes and there's no rhyme or reason, I could understand if you say, nah, Mathieu van der Poel's even above Primoz Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, and he's above Wout van Aert. But I just don't see it that way, of course, because I'm a GC guy. And when you got to fight so hard throughout 3 weeks of racing to be able to win a Grand Tour, I put that quite a bit more extra bonus points over a one-day race, where, of course, Mathieu van der Poel wins the one-day races. But I love the way Wout van Aert can destroy and put the fear, the cycling fear gods into everybody in the bike races, even at a Grand Tour like the Tour de France, where you have the best competition in the world and everybody's firing on all cylinders. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the French team, right? We saw 2 years ago when we were talking about there in Belgium racing at the Road World Championships, and they started attacking 178 kilometers to go. They lit stuff up. Remco Evenepoel took the bait, went full gas, all in on that attack at 178 kilometers to go, pulling that group like crazy. Belgium blew up. We saw Julian Alaphilippe, spectacular 2 years ago, now 3 races at the Road World Championships in Belgium, where he was spectacular and just soloed on that race. But the problem I have with the French strategy, when you look at last year in Australia, they used the same strategy. And again, when you look at this year at the Road World Championships, again in Scotland, you saw the same strategy from the French team, and they weren't changing it up. Didn't make a lot of sense to me on Sunday's race. When you see a break of 9 riders going up the road, they have 7.5 minutes to the peloton being led behind by Belgium, with 3 favorites still in the race. Jasper Philipsen, Wout van Aert, and Remco Evenepoel had to be the favorites when the race started. There's no denying that. So they have 3 favorites, and they have a team of 9, and they only had to ride 1 Frederic Vizon before the circuit started proper with about 150 kilometers to go. That means they're only riding 1 rider, so 1 rider's out. That's going to leave them 8 to start the circuit. Well, all the teams start with 8. Yet the French team still rode for about 20, 30 kilometers early in 2 days ago in Sunday's Road World Championships with the Belgian team. Doesn't make any sense to me. If you want the Belgium team to be put under the knife, make them do all of the work. Make them have to pull all the way into the finish. If they don't pull, they don't win. It's that simple. Belgium had the most to lose in the Men's Road World Championships on Sunday's race because they're coming in with 3 favorites. One's Wout van Aert, and one's Remco Evenepoel, who just got done winning Classic of San Sebastian. They have to pull. So when I see France pulling early, I'm thinking, you guys are knuckleheads. It doesn't make much sense because we all know from 2021 and 2022 that once we get in the circuit, you're going to start lighting things up. So you want the race hard, so why help Belgium make it easier? Okay, well, we saw the protest, and then they sat back. Everyone got some rest. French team stayed off the front. But then when we get into the circuit, now I want to talk a little bit about Denmark, and then I'll go back to France too. Now, Denmark gets on the front, first lap there at the Road World Championships with 140-something K to go. They're going full gas on the front. Doesn't make any sense to me. They have 5 riders at the front of the group. But remember, it's Michael Morkov on the front pulling like crazy on lap 1. Now, during that same lap 1, we saw Mikkel Bjerg, Denmark, have the mechanical problem on the side of the road where the mechanic had to dodge the riders coming up the left side of the road, close the door, jump around the front of his car as the rider shot by, and the mechanic just saved a bunch of guys from crashing, plus himself getting hurt. So we see Mikkel Bjerg there from Denmark behind. You have 5 riders on the front. Once we get about 8K, 5K into it, they're going up a steep little climb there. You're going to see 2 more riders in the back from Denmark swinging back there. So now you have 5 riders on the front. One's pulling like crazy, Michael Morkov. So you know in 1 lap's time, 15 kilometers, just under, 14.3, he's going to be done. That's 1. Mikkel Bjerg's done. That's 2. 2 other guys are at the very back swinging like crazy at the Road World Championships. That's 4 riders on lap 1. That's 50% of your team that's gone that Denmark put in the hurt locker to begin with on the first lap. Doesn't make much sense to me because you know always when you're talking about Belgium, they're going to want to have aggressive race. We know Remco Evenepoel loves to go at 178 kilometers to go because we saw that in 2021 at the Belgian Road World Championships. And then we saw him going pretty early at the Australian Road World Championships. Of course, that put him in the rainbow jersey. But because he was in that rainbow jersey, because he has Jasper Philipsen on the team and Wout van Aert, Remco Evenepoel knows he has to go a bit early if he wants a shot at winning for Belgium. Otherwise, he's going to be working for Wout or Jasper Philipsen. Now, so we get back to Denmark. They're brought back. Now we see the French team back on the front, and I'll go into some more details of the crazy knuckleheadism of the French team. With Denmark still riding full gas, Julian Alaphilippe decides he wants the race to go harder. Now, Julian Alaphilippe in 2021 was spectacular when he won in Belgium, but he hasn't been spectacular since his crash a couple years back at LBL, and he's been suffering. We saw it at the 23 Tour de France when it just finished 2 weeks ago, that every stage he's going early, blowing up, and getting dropped. And here at the Men's Road World Championship, while the race is already going hard, what does he go do? He starts attacking Denmark. Doesn't make any sense at all that Julian Alaphilippe would want to be attacking, with the exception when they're in the riders' meeting in the bus before the Road World Championships. Thomas Voeckler, who said the strategy at the beginning of the race is hard to predict on a course like this, well, he didn't inform his riders that, hey, if it's going full gas, if Denmark is going up there pulling like crazy with 5 guys on the front and 3 guys swinging off the back with a mechanical, if they're going that hard, Julian, save it. Save it a little bit. Let's change the strategy from Belgium, and let's change the strategy from the Australian Road World Championships too. And this time, instead of being aggressive, let's think. Well, in Belgium it worked, but you had Julian Alaphilippe. Here we're in Scotland 2 years later after that, but our top rider is Christophe Laporte. So if you're Thomas Voeckler, the strategy needs to change. We know Julian Alaphilippe from the Tour de France in 2023, only 2 weeks ago, doesn't have the fitness to do 270 kilometers, pulling aggressively with 140 kilometers to go in the Men's Road World Championships. It doesn't make any sense. Their top rider has to be Christophe Laporte. What Christophe Laporte would want if you're sitting in the meeting and you're Thomas Voeckler, what you want to think about is what does Christophe Laporte need and want to get further into the race? Okay, once we get into 2 laps, maybe 3 laps to go, hopefully the group is reduced, and then we can start playing Christophe Laporte for a win where he's following Wout van Aert, or maybe he's following a Mathieu van der Poel at different points in the last 3 laps to go, and Christophe Laporte with his form. Because let me remind you guys, Christophe Laporte won a classic this year. It was a bit of a gift from Wout van Aert. But if you're sitting second on Wout van Aert's wheel, you got to be quality. He's won stages of the Tour de France, and his level since he jumped over to Jumbo-Visma has gone way up. And I don't think Vauclair, the DS for the French team, ever gave it much thought when he's thinking, well, we're going to use the same strategy as 2021. We're going to use the same strategy as 2022. And we're going to bring it here into 2023. Because when you look at Julian Alaphilippe, he's not the same rider. So you can't do what worked in Belgium. You got to do what works for Christophe Laporte. Throughout the first 2 laps of the racing at the Men's Road World Championships, Christophe Laporte was something amazing. Always in the top 20 positions pretty much, and always near Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, or Tadej Pogacar through all the aggressive riding in the early 2.5 laps of the Men's Road World Championships. Now, we see the other French riders, they were further back. At times there was big splits that Christophe Laporte's in the front. Maybe there's one French guy in that group that's 15, 20 guys big, but when you look further back, all the other French guys were in the back. Groups will come back together, and then once we see Christophe Laporte, once he has the bike issue, I believe it's a front wheel change, looking at the Shimano mechanic that came up to try to change it, but he waits for his road bike. At that moment, you look, just as he pulled off to the side, you see Julian Alaphilippe just 2 places up, looking back at Christophe Laporte, and Julian Alaphilippe's legs have already fallen off because we've seen him attack, and then we saw him swinging at the back before Laporte has the mechanical. Once Laporte gets on his bike, Julian Alaphilippe's there soon enough afterwards, but like I said, his legs are dead. I told you guys 2 days ago on the butterfly effect that I thought the French team should have waited at that moment the whole time and sat up and waited for Christophe Laporte. Remember, it's 106 kilometers to go and Christophe Laporte has his mechanicals. They basically are only into the first 3 laps of the Men's Road World Championships. So you got to believe if you're a director sportif or if you're a rider there. And remember, Christophe Laporte was in front of all of his teammates. Never before he had a mechanical did I see any teammates in front of him at crucial times throughout the Men's Road World Championship. So when he has the flat tire, he should have had to pass each of his teammates where hopefully, and remember, they don't have radio, so I can't guarantee this, but hopefully he's looking over and he's saying, Benoit Cosnefroy, I got a flat, wait. He sees Valentin Madouas, I got a flat, Valentin, wait for me. He sees Brian Cocard, I got a flat, wait for me. He sees Florian Sénéchal, wait for me, I got a flat. And you have 4 guys or 3 guys with one slightly tired Julian Alaphilippe in front of Christophe Laporte, and they just drive it. And like I said, on the butterfly effect, when you're that early into the race, you got to assume the guys at the front of the peloton are going to slow down at some point in time. Okay, I know they didn't. In hindsight, I know they didn't, but I don't ever like to play the hindsight game, whether if I'm talking butterfly effect or beyond the coverage. I don't play hindsight. I play what I think was happening at that moment, and I try to explain the story to you the way I saw it on the Chesterfield while I was enjoying it, so that you guys could see it from my view of how I saw it. But when you think about it and you bring Benoit Cosnefroy, Valentin Madouas, I believe Florian Sénéchal was still in that front group. If not, Brian Cocard definitely was there, and Julian Alaphilippe was back there. So you got at least 4, maybe 5 riders in front of Christophe Laporte that just have to ride full gas. And I got this to give the question there to Brian Smith, who said you'd be ridiculous to hold back any of your teammates if you got 4 or 5 French guys in front of Christophe Laporte, and all he had to do was wait to change a bike that looked like it happened pretty fast. If 5 guys from the French team can't get him back on, were you going to win anyways? No way were you going to win. Now to top it off, Christophe Laporte's back there chasing with Julian Alaphilippe. And we're coming up to cross the finish line, and we'll see there with about 99 kilometers to go, if I'm not mistaken, it's Benoit Cosnefroy that's attacking, going up the right side of the road, attacking the group so you can keep the pace fast, while his team leader, Christophe Laporte's back there with one tired Julian Alaphilippe. Now, could be radios, I don't know, or they could be just all knuckleheads, I don't know either. Maybe Christophe Laporte, when he got the mechanical, he drifted by his riders. They were coming by so fast he wasn't able to tell his riders, like Benoit Cosnefroy, Valentin Madouas, Brian Cocard, and Florian Sénéchal, that, hey, I need some help, you gotta stop. Either way, the French team were knuckleheads for making the race harder when they didn't have to, for not waiting for Christophe Laporte, and for attacking while Christophe Laporte's chasing Benoit Cosnefroy. That was absolutely knuckleheadism. Either way, unless, of course, you had no idea where Christophe Laporte was, which could be because there's no race radios and why I think the professional peloton should always have race radios. Makes better viewing when they don't have it, but I think every professional rider should know the details of where their teammates are at, and if they have an issue like that, it should be understood throughout the team right away that you need to wait for Christophe Laporte. Now, Team Denmark, I can cover them just a little bit because I thought they were a bunch of knuckleheads. Okay, I already told you first lap. They got 4 riders basically done in the first lap with Michael Morkov pulling hard. He's done. 2 riders at the back, they're done. And, of course, Björg's mechanical that sent him out the back and ended his Road World Championship. So they're down to 4 guys. We'll see those guys get caught. They get brought back, of course. Then we'll see Skilmos go full gas when he's attacking. Skilmos will stay out there with only 2 other riders, Tobias Foss and 1 Italian rider. They'll stay out there for about 12 kilometers. This is how Denmark should have played the first lap. If you want to be aggressive. I don't know if you need to be aggressive if you have Mads Pedersen on your team. I think after 250 kilometers of racing or 225 kilometers of racing even, that would be enough to reduce the field. You have small numbers. And a rider like Mads Pedersen could always win the field sprint if his legs are still in good shape when we're coming down to the last 270 kilometers of the race and he's only got to do a few meters to the line. I think when you're looking at Mads Pedersen, he can win that way just as easy. So I don't see a reason of having Denmark on the front. But with the attack of Skilmos, after Michael Morkov stopped his pull-in, we saw Julian Alaphilippe's attack get brought back. Then we see Skilmos go. He goes for 12 kilometers with the help of the 2 riders, Tobias Foss and the Italian rider. Once we see the Belgium team chasing back there, it's my man Victor Campenaerts on the front. He's throwing down, and he's got Yves Lamparts there. Now, in 12 kilometers, Skilmos with 2 other riders on his wheel helping pull in, destroyed my man Victor Campenaerts. Little tear there in my eye because we didn't see much of him after that. He blew by bringing back Skilmos, and Yves Lamparts blew. So you used up 1 Skilmos for 12 kilometers and didn't even use him completely because he had spectacular form. So don't get me wrong, Skilmos was money on the Men's Road World Championships in terms of fitness, but he blew up with 12 kilometers, two Belgian riders out of the front. And let me remind you guys, Jasper Philipsen had already gotten caught up in a crash early, so he was out, and Frederic Vrison was out. So that meant 4 Belgian riders were out with about, call it about 120 kilometers to go. I don't quite remember the distance. But either way, that's why I prefer having riders attack. So if you're going to send a rider up the road, Denmark, because you want it hard, send them up the road. Don't pull the Belgium team behind and give them a free ride. Send a rider like Skilmos or somebody else up the road, and at least you blow up my man Victor Campenaerts and Yves Lamparts, so you reduce the numbers of the Belgium team back there. But even later, Denmark get on the front and they start pulling with Søren Kragh, Andersen, and Skilmos more when they got 5 Belgium guys sitting on the road, sitting on their wheels, when I told you already in 12 kilometers they blew up 2 Belgium guys because they had to be on the front. So make no mistake about it. Being on the front is more effort than being on the back. And why is that, Garrett?
Because you're in the wind.
Because you're in the wind, right? That's why my man Victor Campenaerts blew up and Yves Lamparts were done at the Road World Championships after that attack from Skilmos. So ridiculous riding from Denmark. Mads Pedersen did a good job to pull out a 4th here at the Men's Road World Championships, but even he let out the sprint too long, so the Slovenian came by him at the line to take the last podium position for Tadej Pogačar to get bronze at the Men's Road World Championships. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the very long video here of Beyond the Coverage. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next edition real soon.